Welcome to the Next Up podcast. This is a special episode sponsored by Cool Tropics that was recorded at Houston Independent School District with none other than Miss Betty Wiggins, Child Nutrition Administrator, Marcus Glenn, Area Manager, Nutrition and Agriculture, and of course, our sponsor, Frank Nasabni, President and CEO of Cool Tropics. In this episode, we spoke about the importance of farm-to-school programs, what Houston ISD is doing with their 100-plus farm sites, and how Cool Tropics is supporting operators and farmers to bring locally grown food to school nutrition programs across the country. I hope you enjoy. So here we are in Houston at Houston ISD, and I have three very special friends with me, and we're kind of going to go around the table and do some brief introductions. This is something I like to call your street cred session. So we're going to save Miss Betty for last because I know you got a long list of things to talk about. So we're going to start over here with Frank, who probably has just as long as a list as you. So Frank, do me a favor and introduce yourself to everybody watching and listening.
Thank you for having us here, Marlon. Betty, Marcus, thank you for hosting us here. Yeah. My name is Frank Nasabni. I am the founder, president, CEO of Cool Tropics. And being here at Houston ISD with good friends and partners who love kids, who love feeding kids, it's a pleasure. And after 30 years in business, feeding kids is what it's about at the end of the day. It starts and ends with feeding the kids. We're feeding the future of America, and happy to be here.
So 30 years in business, what is Cool Tropics?
So Cool Tropics, when we describe it, we don't describe it as a product. We describe it as a program. And my teammate Dana Sheffield earlier this year said, it's a fun experience. Because at the end of the day, we want the kids to eat with us. We want healthy kids, not healthy trash cans. So Cool Tropics is a product that gets kids excited about the food they eat. We take things that kids love, like slushies and smoothies. We make them 100% juice, no sugar added, and fun, attractive packaging. And our schools and partners will put on a day where it's going to drive participation, where it's going to be circled like they do Pizza Day or Nugget Day or Taco Day. And there's the Cool Tropics Day. So it becomes an experience, not just a product. And that's why we're proud of that. We're proud to partner with schools to really feed the kids.
Well, you make it fun for more than students because whenever I go to a trade show and I see your booth, I always go there and it's a fun time. You guys are fun all around.
Thank you, Marlon. We're blessed. We're blessed to be here. But the whole story, we were talking, Marlon and I, the whole story, when I look at Betty and when I look at myself, I came to the U.S. here at the age of 16. I didn't speak English. When I came here, I learned English at 16. And it's funny when you're learning English because some things come to mind like, when you're learning something for the first time, you're translating in your head. And I'll never forget the expression when I learned something costs an arm or a leg. And in my head, I'm translating that. And I'm like, wow, arm and leg, and there's price associated with that. I'm like, wow, we sell arms and legs in America. No wonder why it's the greatest country on earth. And so imagine as a young man, you hear that. And then 4 years later, out of necessity, really, to help out my family and do my part, started Cool Tropics. And that journey, 30 years later, here we are. The company just turned 30 years old this past May. And two things that resonate the most with me after 30 years, team culture and relationships, because business comes and goes, but relationships stay.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Love your story. And I can't wait one day to dive into that a bit more. I've told Frank in the past I want to do a podcast series on the American dream, and one day that's going to happen. We're going to talk about your story because it is inspirational.
With you, Marlon, anytime. And I loved your podcast with Dr. Katie Wilson.
Thank you.
I can listen to Dr. Katie Wilson talk all day. She's passionate. I loved her story, so I enjoyed every second of it. Thanks for doing what you do.
Yeah, no problem. It's my pleasure. All right, Marcus, the man, what's up?
Nothing much. Thank you for coming out to Houston for this. My name is Marcus Glenn. I oversee the agriculture education program for Houston ISD, and more so our farm to school program, which includes a 6.5 acre educational production farm, as well as a network of about 110 school gardens stretched throughout the city. And my team goes to work every day to provide great opportunities for kids and connecting them to their food, helping them understand where it is that food actually comes from, the work that goes into producing food, and what the nutritional benefit is from the food that it is that they eat. And so I'm excited to be here with you guys hearing you talk about 30 years and Betty's decades-long careers in food. It really humbles me and gives me something to look forward to. So I'm very happy to be in this room with you guys.
So I'm curious, how do you get into the position that you're in right now?
Man. So previously I served as a 4-H agent here in Harris County for Prairie View A&M University. And in that job, my role was to expose urban youth to agriculture and what was tied to agriculture. And so I did a lot of school gardens. As part of that, I did a lot of healthy eating type of programs as well. And so just based off of that and my work locally in the farming and urban agriculture community, the previous director of this program heard about my work from some principals and some teachers, and I applied and I wound up getting the job. And I'm happy to be here and to being able to implement the vision that Betty and Nan have, and then just being able to take it a little bit further.
Man, I can't wait to hear how you manage 110 school gardens. That's a lot.
It's with a good group of professionals to educate teachers, and then letting the teachers have the creative space to implement what it is that they want to do.
Okay, cool. All right, Miss Betty, it's your turn.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, without sounding braggadocious, I'm very proud of our farm to school program. Matter of fact, I'm very proud of my farm to school career. As you know, it started at Detroit Public Schools in 2010 with the founding of the Detroit School Garden Collaborative. I think they've changed the name along the way, but it's still functioning and doing the same thing. It's still a very active program. But I started my farm to school career for two reasons. Number one, they had just passed a piece of legislation that gave $5 million to farm to school. And luckily, I was in the great state of Michigan with the great Senator Debbie Stabenow, and we applied for one of those grants, and we started with the Hoop House. We also started in an area that was completely devastated by the economy at Detroit. Yeah, it's like the phoenix is rising, but it'll never be the great motor city that it was before. But urban agriculture. And I started looking around, and I said, wait a minute. These kids, there was no supermarkets. There was nothing. So we started farming. So I'm not the only one that started urban farming, but the Farm to School bill gave me an opportunity to engage children. I wanted to ensure that kids have more than a consumer relationship with their food. And the only way that you could do that is to have them engaged, I also started looking around my own neighborhood, and I've always been a gardener, planting flowers and stuff. But I had a young man come to me one day, and I was trying to plant watermelons, and I was planting the seeds. I was planting the plants. And he said, Miss Betty, what are you doing? I said, I'm planting watermelons. And he looked at me like, you poor demented woman. Watermelons come from Kroger's, not from the ground. And just him saying that made me tear up my whole side driveway and everything. And I started planting vegetables and inviting the neighborhood kids in to help me with my garden. And that translated to looking at all the vacant property that was in Detroit and starting a school garden in a school where I was trying to do a community garden. And I said, well, wait a minute. I got a population that's closer to me. And I looked up and there was a school. And it was Beckham Elementary, and we started a garden there. And from there, it just became my goal in life, and part of my career is to ensure that kids had more consumer relationship with food. It became important to me that they had good, wholesome food in their diets because, I would go into the supermarkets on Saturday, and I wasn't stalking parents. I was just looking to see what they were putting in their baskets. And I was just, very concerned. And that the food service program has to go beyond the tray. Those 5 little compartments in the tray, that's not our whole story. That is not the whole story of why we're here. We're here to provide educational and nutritional services for the kids. And who could do it more easily than the people who control what's on the plate? And so we try to ensure, number one, that there's good, wholesome food on our trays and it's offered variety in the most economical way that we can that meets standards and regulations. But that all comes back to what we're doing at Farm to School. Farm to School, they call it the Leahy Bill now. I guess because they're going to name the Farm Bill after Debbie Stabenow, and well, they should. But the Leahy Bill recognizes the importance of what Farm to School should be. Here at Houston, McCowa Farm was an accident. I was driving by one day, lost in Houston. I thought I was in another city. So I pulled up into this vacant school lot. And I'm like, oh, the old Midwest curiosity, like, what is this? So I got out of my car. I went into a vacant building. Being from Detroit, that wasn't a problem. And I found out that we own this 100-year-old building, which is the third oldest building in Harris County, which allowed us to have 6.5 acres. In Detroit, I only had 2.5. By 3, I get an opportunity to have a bigger farm. And the vision changed just a little bit. What we do now is that we're not trying to produce food for children, but we're trying to teach kids sustainable agricultural techniques. We're also trying to show them we only raise heirlooms because we want children to see the diversity within a species. What is a better way to teach about DEI principles and philosophies than to have the kids have an experiential opportunity to pick up a green tomato and say, ugh? I say, why are you saying ugh? Taste it, feel it, see that it's a part of the tomato family. Mm-hmm. And that's the reason I raise heirlooms, or for kids to pick up a cucumber or squash that's half green and half yellow. What is that? Like the biracial product. So, I mean, it's just ways that you can have so many lessons in the garden, sociological lessons that ingrain in our children about equity and fairness and parity. So, I mean, I could go on and on. I'm sorry, I could go on and on forever about why I think Farm to School is so important and the impact that it has on our children. And we should think about that. And because it said the children will lead them, I have to tell you one more experience I had where I had an African-American girl in the market, and she picked up an avocado. And because she had been introduced to the avocado, she knew about guacamole, she knew about the fat content, and she said to her mom, let's buy this. And mother said, what is that? She said, what kind of moldy apple? What is that? Mom didn't even know. And a young girl, 12, 13, maybe 12, I don't know, said, let's buy it and I want to show you how to make guacamole. And it's very good. Wow. This was lessons that she had learned in her Farm to School program. These are the kind of lessons that we want to share with our community. I'm telling you, eating and sitting around a table is the greatest way to socially equalize people. Mm-hmm. So, okay, that's it.
Love it.
Yeah, well, I'll have to ask. So the little boy that said watermelon comes from Kroger, did he try one year watermelon, and what did he say?
Well, now he's a junior in college, and he every year I started planting my garden, his grandmother would say, "You stole my grandchild." As soon as he come up my street, he would run to my house. I even had to get him, I had little 2-year-olds coming up my driveway eating hula berries, which were white strawberries. Ooh. And just the excitement of coming in Miss Betty's yard. It wasn't all about flowers to me anymore. It was about the opportunity to show children that they can control what they eat and they can have awareness and to have kids eat fruit. Now, Frank didn't ask me to do this, but Frank, I'm telling you, I just went to my chef and I asked him to sell me a case of Cool Tropics because that's what I'm giving out on Halloween. I'm going to sit at the end of my driveway.
She does the same to my daughter when she comes up here.
Yeah, because it's IW, meets all the safety standards. They have to worry about I'm back there cooking up some kind of brew.
That's right.
But to give kids something that's healthy and refreshing and delightful. So that's what I'm doing. And I would say to some of my colleagues, hey, why are we doing this candy thing? Let's try to do that. You can't do fresh fruits anymore because people don't know, but this is a package item that I can give the kids with the confidence they're getting something healthy and wholesome.
Frank, how does that make you feel? I mean, that's pretty big. They're not just serving it in schools, but it's so good and so healthy and tasty. They're serving it outside of schools.
For a treat.
Yeah, for a treat.
It's heartwarming. It's beautiful. I love when we get emails from parents, their kids have special needs or their kids, especially during the pandemic, they don't go to school. So where can they get our product retail? I'm like, you got to get it from the schools. You got to get it from the curbside. Our schools are doing curbside. And you got to feel good about that because at the end of the day, when you enter business, I entered it for one reason, and it's a whole different reason 30 years later. I entered it because I want to do the right thing for my family, and I want to support my family. Then when I got to meet the school food service professionals, there's a passion that they have, and I'm like, I need to learn more about that. And then when I visited an elementary school and they invited me to have lunch with the kids, that's eye-opening. Any profession you're in, if you're looking to hire someone who's a registered dietitian and they're thinking about schools or hospital, just have them have lunch with the kids, and that will change their mind. Then we start to go to Washington, D.C. with our schools to really advocate on and give voice to the voiceless on behalf of our kids. And that became, a beautiful thing as well. So there's a passion now for our community because our community, at the end of the day, we are feeding the future of America. That's what you guys are doing. But in that circle, you have many people supporting our schools. You have our industry partners. You have SNA. You have our brokers, our distributors, our state agency, and the USDA. Together, we are feeding the future. Now, farm to school for us, it didn't start because I woke up one day and I'm so smart and I want to do farm to school. It didn't happen that way. It started by our schools saying, coming to me, Ruth from Buffalo, New York says, Frank, we have this new thing in New York, and if we feed 30% of our food being New York grown, we will get extra dollars from the state of New York. And you have a partnership with Welch's. Why can't we have a Welch's farm to school? They grow their Concord grape right outside my home, right here. So sure enough, we went to Welch's and said, what do we need to do to have a New York farm to school? I know you grow it in Michigan. I know you grow it in Pennsylvania. We've been to their farms in Erie, Pennsylvania. I've been to their farms, Welch's farms in Western Michigan. That was outstanding. And, and then I went to, Betty's old district in Detroit after that. And we ended up making a deal with Welch's to launch a Welch's New York farm to school, which gives us also a good option for Buy American, which is going to be needed here in the near future. So then I was at LAC one year, and Darren from Cypress Fairbanks said to me, Frank, you're doing this for New York. Why aren't you doing this for Texas?
We have a bunch of fruit down in the valley.
That's what he said. He said, Frank, we have these oranges and these grapefruit juice right down in the Rio Grande Valley. Right. And I'm like, are you serious? He's like, yeah. He's like, come on, man. Texas has been good to you. I said, okay, Darren, I'll look into it. Fast forward a couple of years later, we just launched our first farm to school here in Texas. We partnered with the farmers down in the valley. My teammate Dana Sheffield took 15 people from the school districts down in the valley to the nursery where they grow the trees, to where they process the oranges and the grapefruit juice. They had a beautiful half a day together. So now I had people in California saying, all right, Frank, why aren't you doing California farm to school? So we just launched using white grape juice from California farm to school. The secret for us to help our schools to do California farm to school year round, it's one thing to pick it fresh, which I love what Betty is talking about, because that's also educational. And that's a good relationship between the kids and the food. But for us, in my part of the world, to do a processed juice, take the fruit into a processed juice, you need a processor. For example, in North Carolina, they are the biggest state in the country, I didn't know this, to grow sweet potatoes. I didn't know this is the number one state of growing sweet potatoes. Yep. So I had good friends of mine, Lisa from Buncombe County and Kim, dear friends of mine, and said, Frank, why aren't you doing this for us here? So we actually made a deal with the farmers. There's a processor there. We were ready to launch January 2020, right before the pandemic. And it got to the point where the Department of Ag of North Carolina said, we will deliver it for free with the commodities until you get a distributor because you're helping our farmers. That's how serious it got. We had a farmer in tears saying, wow, I don't have to throw my sweet potatoes that are not good enough for retail. Now I can process them into juice. Thank you. You're helping us. And then the company that owned the processor shut it down. So we never got to launch it because we didn't have a processor anymore. So it's a goal of ours, and it's really an obligation for us to help our states who want to do farm to school to find them the processor, to be able to process things for them, because then they can serve it year round, not just a specific time. So it really came out of demand of the schools saying, hey, you guys have, you've been good partner to the schools. We've been good partners to Cool Tropics. Can you do this for us? And the last thing I'll say is, I was in Hawaii, we do business with Hawaii DOE, and they were talking about farm to school. And there are people a lot smarter than me that can talk about this, but I'd love to learn about it. They said, if you are consuming products that are grown within X amount of 100, 200 miles, less issues for allergies because it's the same air
local,
you're breathing, same water you're drinking. So that also, because, all the allergies we hear about today, they're real. We didn't know about these back then when we were kids. They are real, and they're just them talking about doing local. This is the same air they're breathing, the same water they're drinking. How amazing is that? So there's more to it that I'd love to learn about, but I can't wait to help our industry do more, find more processing and offer farm to school and buy American as much as possible everywhere in the United States.
So I have to ask all
That's
three of you.
what Frank just described is what farm to school is really all about.
Yeah.
People keep forgetting. School gardens was a component, but buying locally grown food is really what it was all about. I come from the great state of Michigan, and I'm proud to be a Texas resident, but the great state of Michigan was where farm to school really took hold in terms of helping farmers, local farmers, small farmers. Go read the farm to school guidance. The school gardens is educational reality, but really dealing with our local farmers. When I was in Detroit, I bought 40% of my produce from the state of Michigan, which was easy because we had a large variety and whatever. Buying American was easy because it was just 50 miles up. Excuse me, my Michigan stuff is coming out. It was just 50 miles up the road. But people keep forgetting one of the major components of farm to school is to buy local. Manufacturers need to start investing in our small farmers and processors. Manufacturers need to know that it doesn't need to cluck, oink, or moo in order for it to be locally grown. There are so many fruits and vegetables that we could use. And even to a point that it wasn't juice, but when I was in Detroit, I contracted with a farmer in St. Clair County for 2.5 acres of sweet corn. Contract forwarding. It was easy to do because he said, well, Betty, I can't guarantee you 2.5 acres. I said, but you can guarantee me what you can because menus are always subject to change. But he delivered, but then I had to find a processor. And I found that. So it takes a lot to bring that locally grown produce to the table. And I know as a manufacturer, that's a lot of investment for you as well. But to be able now, the state of Texas can compete in local food. We just had a local food grant that based on the size of our district, if you're 70 per, we get $250,000 to spend on locally grown food. If we didn't have those options out there, that money wouldn't be used in the state of Texas. Guys, think about how we benefit the local farmer economy. Our farmers are small businessmen who I respect because anybody that depends upon the sun, the moon, the stars, and an almanac, in order to manage their business, deserve respect and they deserve all the support that we give them. So, while I'm very proud of our garden program and what our garden program does for our children in terms of making sure they have more than a consumer relationship with their food, let's not forget the major component was locally grown food and expanding our food system. What we're teaching now is that you can be, with our kids, to be a participant. But again, I was just sitting there listening to you about the manufacturers. That's what I was doing in Detroit. I was going up highways and byways trying to find small farmers who could. And what happened was the biggest problem was processing. Farmers need, and then, even buying, 1 year I bought grade B peaches because I told the farmer, I'm not trying to mess with your tray pack, but all the ones that are the wrong size, we picked them up, we brought them into the kitchen, peeled them, and put them in fresh fruit cups. So, it takes a little effort. With this whole move back to scratch cooking, I encourage my colleagues, get with some of your farmers. Get with a school, a bushel or two, small purchasing. There's a lot of things that we can do to support our local farming economy. So, again, I don't know if I'm getting off track, but based upon my past experience, kind of hard to do it here in Texas. It's a big place. But
We don't have the
But I know
process.
what we can do locally, particularly in small districts. You can know that farmer, know your farmer, know your farmer, know your food. So I encourage that.
You're never off track, Betty.
Yeah.
You're never off track. You forgot more than what most people will learn
Man,
through their career.
yes.
So
True.
you keep talking. We are learning from you. Thank you.
And I mean, to Ms. Betty's point, she offered a teacher. We had a teacher over at Booker T. Washington High School who had set up pretty much a hydroponic plant factory inside of his classroom using one recycled nutrition services material. So all of the old serving pans that we got rid of, he picked them up and repurposed them as grow containers. But she let him know up front, hey, if you can produce 1,000 heads of this, I'll purchase them from you. That's going ahead and giving that school some extra funds to allow them to be able to do some things, and then showing these kids that this skill or this skill that I'm learning in class can actually lead toward me being able to make money. And that's the number one question that I get when I go into a classroom is, okay, how much money do you make? Well, it's not about how much I make, but how much it is I can show you that you can make through these different skills in agriculture or tied to
or student
agriculture
ran
and food.
farmers markets. We've had the experience now. Matter of fact, people are clamoring for it. That we had a student ran farmers market out in the parking lot of our administrative building, and we had 4 different schools there. One of them was even selling wild game, which
Yeah.
this is a text. I'm getting used, guys. I'm not really.
The kids went out on a hunt and harvested the
Yeah,
meat
I'm
and
getting used
everything
to it.
themselves.
What did they
But
hunt?
it's a real source of protein, and so we had all sorts of stuff with the kids being engaged. And once kids find out that you can generate income, they participate. Because this kid's like, I made what, $20? I said in less than 5 minutes. So when they start to get that relationship, everybody doesn't have to sit in a 4-piece suit and do something. We really need some boots on the ground, folks supporting our agriculture economy. And that's the other thing that I admire Marcus about, is that he really goes after the young people. We have interns, we have student employees. We're really trying to let kids know that there's value in farming.
So to answer your question, Marlon, they brought deer. They brought deer steaks, deer sausage, and a deer boudin.
Oh man, that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
So talk to me about these 110 farms you guys have. Like, let's dive into that. What are you guys growing? What's the program look like? How'd you set it up?
So we've come up with a standardized seed list for schools to be able to grow between this fall and the spring, primarily because a lot of teachers, they'll say, oh, I want to have a school garden, but yet they don't know what it is to plant from season to season. So for the fall season, we're more so focusing on leafy greens and root vegetables. And then probably around February or so, we'll tell them, okay, let's go ahead, pull out those leafy greens and roots. Make sure that you have some type of harvest celebration to go along with it. And then let's drop in your spring crop. So again, still probably some leafy greens, hoping that it doesn't bolt too quick because of our heat down here. But then also moving into some fruiting vegetables. So peppers, tomatoes, melons, so just different things. And so for the most part, we really work on, to borrow the model really from Extension, we train the trainer. It's no way that my staff of, it's less than 5 of us, could really service 110 school gardens. And
That's
so
a jab.
it's not a jab, it's the truth. But what we can do really well is host professional developments. And so since school started in August, we've hosted professional developments every month. So the first one was just getting teachers back into the swing of things, letting them know how the program will be running, what we'll be doing, and different type of supports and opportunities we'll be bringing them. The second one we just hosted was about STEM out on the farm. So we had teachers come out to our farm where they learned about different type of STEM activities that they can do in the garden, and then also being able to implement garden activities into their classroom. That way it's not an extra chore or something for you to do.
But that's that. I have to say, as a founder of Detroit School Garden Collaborative, that was a model I bought from Detroit. I said there is no way. We had 82 school gardens in Detroit, plus a 2.5-acre farm, And you really ought to talk to the folks. I'm so proud of that program. But the teacher education part, giving teachers something, and then working with the curriculum people so that they could get their CEUs. So it was at Detroit we used to feed them supper because winter and hard to get and stuff like that. But to give teachers opportunity to earn CEUs, to give them more than say, here's an extra duty, and to give them something like Felicia Moore, who's our garden educator, to give them that support. So she's like a TA, to have our farmers go out and we do bed bills, and then we organize the community to support it. My position on school gardens is that when the kids aren't there, that's a community garden. And you will be surprised at how many people will come out of the community, take care of those garden beds when kids aren't there, but to give them a chance to use the produce.
And so that's something that we're working toward implementing.
In Detroit, I never had a fence around a school garden. You know why? That garden belonged to the community. And we had a couple that were tore up, but the majority weren't. Another funny story is a woman told me when I was in Detroit, Miss Wiggins. They didn't call me Miss Betty. In the North, they call me Miss Wiggins. Miss Wiggins, there's a man walking up and down the street selling collard greens. And I said, what's the problem? Well, he's getting them out your school garden. I said, but at least somebody's got a job and he's taking care of the garden when the kids and the teachers aren't there. So always think about school gardens, extend them out to the community, invite the community in. We don't have enough manpower. It takes a lot of man hours to manage a garden. So if you can get volunteers out of your community, then that garden has a chance of surviving. And then you look at our academic calendar. Treat your teachers well. Give them what they need. Give the kids the opportunity to see gardening in so many different ways, from hookah beds to hydroponics to verdict, all sort of things. And that's what builds a successful program, not just having a bunch of pretty stuff out there.
I'm jealous of. Sorry, Marcus, go ahead.
I was going to say, so I think this is like the first time HISD has actually done a teacher training that's specific around gardening. And so we're looking forward to continuously getting the feedback from teachers and helping them expand as they help us make the program better. So
I'm jealous of the kids of your district and the districts that do have farms, because what a great way for them as well to learn at a young age. And all it takes is one to get passionate about it. Look at Marcus. He's so passionate about it. All it takes is one. Earlier this year in January, for the SNIC conference, it was in San Diego. And my good friend Fred and his team from San Diego Public Schools hosted anyone and everyone that wanted to go check out their farm. And the person in charge of the farm, their Marcus over there, right. Gave the tour and talked to us about things. And we were like, picking things off of right there, fresh products right there. And it was really awesome. In fact, they hosted lunch after, and a lot of the things they served at lunch came from the garden. And I'll never forget when I was literally in Michigan a year ago now at the Welch's Farms, and we're picking the Concord grape right there off the vine and eating them fresh. I didn't even wash them. Yeah. I just ate them fresh. And that's just Michigan, just being in Michigan, picking the Concord grape at the Welch's Farms. There's something special about that. And, on a personal note, my late father, God love him, I miss him every day. He passed 5.5 years ago. And I guess when we mention our loved ones who passed, you keep their memory alive. And he loved to farm in his yard. But then he would come to my home or my sister's home, and he brings all the tools, whether you asked him or not. And he's there the whole day. And he'll plant things, and he'll take care of the bush and the tree and everything you have. And our neighbors are calling me saying, who is this guy? Can we hire him? I'm like, no, that's my dad. So there's a passion. For farming. I wish I learned that from my dad, but I can't wait to go visit, Houston ISD's farm and
also go to Detroit. I mean, Detroit has built it's a part of its rising from the ashes has been urban agriculture.
Yeah.
And when I took Marcus to Detroit,
I loved it.
He could not.
I'm ready to go back.
Can we all go with you? Yeah, we all want to go.
When you go, make sure you go with Betty. Okay. And let her just be her.
All right.
She's giving me history of Detroit along with, I used to grow. I did the garden over there. I did a school farm here, and then for the local farming community, even just to see her back, it was refreshing to them. Just kind of like, okay,
Wow.
this person who started this with us, she might have left, but she didn't forget us, you know.
Yeah.
And she brings friends back. So you definitely want to go back with Betty when you have a chance to.
So are you free in January? Are you free in January?
Well, you don't go to Michigan until about March.
Yeah, that's probably right. You're probably right.
But, no, but the whole farm to school, again, and if I was to have some remarks, final remarks about it, is that people need to know that it's not all about school garden. It's about purchasing locally grown produce and adding dollars into our local farming community. All our communities aren't big ag. Understand that. Produce growers aren't necessarily big ag. You're going to be hard pressed. You can find big ag, you got to go to California. But when you go to places like Michigan, Illinois, Indiana, you find small farmers, 800 acres, 150 acres, orchards. You talk about the grapes out on the western shore. I know those grape farms. I'm surprised orchards is making juice and not also wine because that's wine country out there. But all kind of variety of stuff. Understand the impact that we in the school nutrition business can have on our local economy. When to think that I was buying 40% of my produce from local farmers and have a farmer stand up in Denver, Colorado and tell me, God bless Detroit Public Schools. Because of you buying my local apples, I was able to buy another refrigerated truck. I'm not your bottom line, child nutrition, but we're good cash flow. And I understand that. So understand the business of the business. And people deserve to be paid fairly, equitably for the products that they provide for us, particularly when they're quality products.
So speaking of paying, we were able to have a program, thanks to Miss Betty, in partnership with a local high school, Worthing High School, where we brought out 5 of their students for the past 2 years to come out and work at our farm. They were paid $14 an hour, just like any regular food service attendant that we have. Their school provided them transportation to work. We provided them 6 hours of work every week on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But for those kids to see my work mean something was very wonderful. And we actually got a message from one of the young men. He just completed a welding certificate. So while he didn't come into agriculture, but still he got that work ethic, or just seeing what he could do with his life. And I think we have an opportunity to be able to impact a lot of young people, one, about teaching them about what type of food to eat and where food comes from, but also teaching them about, hey, if you want something, you have to go out and work for it, and the work will pay. You're not going to get the top dollar starting off, but if you continue at it, you can get that top dollar.
But agriculture school, the farm school program, look at it this way. This is the way I look at it. Locally purchases of food supports the tray. School nutrition goes beyond the tray. So we have to understand purposely why we're doing what we're doing. And I never can get those farmers out of my ear. I never can forget them because, again, I said these are courageous small business people. And then the impact it could potentially have on my kids' health and their well-being, to teach them to have more than a consumer relationship with food, to tell them you have enough knowledge that you can participate about what goes on your tray. I'm sorry.
Marlon, I got to tell you, Betty, you're spot on with the schools helping the farmers cash flow wise and grow. Schools nationwide, we are high volume, low margins, but high volume. And that's fine. That's fine. This is a government funded program. We need to feed the kids. Now, when you start thinking about how to support local and how to keep the lights on for those farmers, when I think globally at what schools, the power of schools and what they can do. I remember Congressman McGovern in Massachusetts, his whole thing is to end hunger. His whole career is to end hunger. So during the pandemic, during LAC, we were on Zoom with him, and I got to know him over the years by visiting LAC in DC. And I said, Congressman, I heard you want to put together a White House conference. And he said, yes, I do. I want to put together a White House conference to end hunger and hasn't happened in over 40-something years and so on. And I said, you know, when you all did the PPP for businesses during the pandemic, all your colleagues in Congress did a great thing. You didn't create something that didn't exist before. You didn't do something that you had to reinvent the wheel. You said, hey, we're gonna fund this through the banks. Because everyone who's doing it, most people who do business, they do business with banks. We're not creating this new website that never existed to get you the funds. I said, if you truly want to end hunger and you want to go to the White House conference, you cannot end hunger without having school food service and school nutrition having a seat at the table. Because just like there's a bank in every corner, there's a school in every corner of the United States. Mm-hmm. And he said, Frank, you're spot on. And he made sure that school nutrition had a seat at the table at the White House conference that took place last year. So bringing it full circle to what Betty was saying, that's the power we can have at a school. And if our schools nationwide can say, what is it that we can support locally? Now, it may be seasonal, fine. Like Betty said, it's easy to change the menu, things, whatever's available. But those things can change someone's life. Mm-hmm. And I didn't appreciate the tough job of farmers until I got there. Sometimes their kids don't want to continue because it's that tough of a job.
Yeah.
So God bless them, and hopefully we can support more and more farmers. And now you got me going, Betty. Now I have this passion. I'm like, maybe I need to go invest in a processor. And I'm crazy enough to do it. So
Well, speaking about farming being hard work and children working on your farm, I feel like that's a great thing to do as a young adult or a child is learn what hard work is and the fruits of your labor by working on a farm. Because I feel like so many kids today, they're entitled and they just think things are going to be handed to them. And that's something that I constantly fight with my children because, like, I want them to have all the things that I couldn't have when I was a kid. So I'm constantly giving. But I'm forgetting that they need to learn to work for things the same way I've had to learn to work for things as a kid.
Be very careful with this. When I started 10 years ago, I had some well-meaning people that told me that black and brown children would not participate in gardening because, number one, the brown kids thought it was stupid labor, and the black kids thought it was sharecropping. I had to tell her they are so many generations removed from some of that we have to show them to talk about the role agriculture played. There was nothing wrong, social yada, yada, yada. But do you understand those brown people fed a nation? Do you know those black people fed a nation, regardless of what you want to call it? So there's pride to be taken in the fact that your ancestors were great farmers that were feeding a nation. Forget all the other social stuff. There's nothing wrong with you knowing how to feed yourself. One of the things that happened, and that's the reason you need to start a garden in behind your garage. The ownership of it, we try to give kids plants. It's like nurturing. I have a nephew who graduated from Michigan State University in horticulture and now is at the University of Michigan studying nutrition, that he grew a peach tree from a pit. He watched that peach tree grow. He was probably in about the 6th or 7th grade. But as it grew, this is how we got a horticulturist in our family, because he nurtured that tree and just watched that tree grow and the curiosity around it. The questions that you can answer for science and STEM education around a growing plant. I had a teacher in Detroit to tell me one time, because of what you did in school gardens, my kids could pass the MEP test because they answered the questions on ecology about stems and leaves and pistils and all that were not present. So right now, I'm giving a class. What is my class?
She's doing a professional development next week about home gardening.
On Professional Development Day, that my staff development person people were able to get credit for. But what made me feel so good about this class is one of my employees who registered for the class, and we had to limit the registration because everybody wanted to go Miss Betty's class. So we limited the registration. But she said, I'm hoping from this class I'll be able to form a strong relationship with my daughters by growing a garden. To me, that was like...
It's powerful.
Wow.
Drop the mic.
That's right.
Yeah.
But that's what she said, have a strong relationship with her daughters. And she's not talking about going to do a half an acre. She's talking about maybe 10 containers in the backyard and growing stuff. So do that with your children. Do them that favor. You go bowling with them. You do all sorts of stuff with them. Why don't you just try to take a container pot and say, this is your plant. Let's get a competition around who grows the biggest plant, how to take care of it and stuff.
So I've attempted this, all right? So I actually do have a small garden in my backyard, but the only thing I'm able to keep alive are my peppers. So my question to you guys is, when you guys offer your trainings and your sessions, do you offer them in person or are they virtual? Like if I want to become a gardener, if I want to learn how to farm, are you guys providing resources that I could take advantage of?
It's more so in-person classes.
Okay.
We don't have the streaming capabilities as of yet, but that's something for us to look forward to.
Well, I might know a
But our
company that'd be
lessons would
interested
be-
in helping out with
But
that.
our lessons would be free, and we would like to do a video. We did a video about container gardening back. It was kind of rough, but you're absolutely right. That's those things I say beyond the plate. It doesn't keep it inside the school and giving warm fuzzies and high fives to one another. That's not what it's about. It's about what is the impact you're having on a total community that you serve. During the pandemic, my superintendent at the time says, "Well, how are we going to feed the kids?" I said, "We're not." "What do you mean we're not?" I said, "We're going to feed families in order to feed children." So everything that we do should go back to knock on that door and say, "Come on, guys. This is about you." And that's just like the child nutrition program. I am so glad the CEP, a universal feeding, is being offered throughout the country because the child nutrition program was never about just poor children. Stop it, stop it, stop it. It's never about, there is hunger in the cul-de-sac. Trust me, I know.
Yeah.
There's some hunger in some $500,000 homes. I know. So feeding children well, it's not just been about poor children. It's about all our children, and it's also about educational support and the programs they offer. A kid that comes to our garden learns just as much and get the same skills, high economic, social strata, as the kid who comes from our lower poverty-driven neighborhoods.
Yeah. So how much of the food from your gardens are you guys using within your program?
None. That is our goal. But right now we're more so focused on the educational aspect and not the production. And so we have an entire area that we're dedicating just for kids to be able to come out for field trips. So when they come out on a field trip, they'll go ahead, plant, they'll weed, they'll do everything that our workers would typically do while out on the farm. And then that produce will be used for tastings out there because we can't produce enough food to really get into all 274 schools throughout the district. But what we can do is provide kids with some tastings while they're out there. And then also we host some farmers markets specifically in underserved communities and address food insecurity in that way. And so we're looking forward to seeing how that program
Our fresh
grows.
fruit and vegetable program.
Yeah,
Don't forget
so-
that our fresh fruit and vegetable. We have one of the largest fresh fruit and vegetable programs I'd like to see in the country. Might be off just a smidge,
But it's still one of the largest in the country, even if we're off.
yeah, I think but one of the things that we try to do is that we took our fresh fruit and vegetable program and put it in with our farm to school program. Okay, people say that's really smart, Betty, but really, how we've got 85 schools that we must give fresh fruit and vegetables for. So we want to get those 85 kids out into our gardens. We also want to use some of our dollars to purchase some of the stuff that we grow in our garden so the kids can sample. No way am I ever trying to produce enough food to serve all of Houston ISD. Ain't happening.
Right.
I do well
Not
if
on
I do
6
one
acres.
classroom. But the idea, education has value. Remember my story about the little black girl who was able to sample avocado in her classroom and took a healthy product back to her home that her mom never had before.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
That's
It is.
powerful.
So Frank, from the industry perspective, I know there's a lot of challenges for farmers to figure out how to get into schools. Do you guys offer any help with that, or Miss Betty, do you guys offer any help with educating farmers on the possibilities of child nutrition and offering produce to the kids in schools?
Earlier this year, I attended a conference in Florida. So that's my new home state now, right, Marlon?
That's
so
right. We're Floridians.
Florida. And there were two farmers at the conference. And I just saw one of them this past weekend at the Florida annual conference. And he remembered me from March, and he said, "Frank, I remember you," and we stayed in touch because he has so many oranges that if they don't pass the right grade to go to retail, he said he's feeding them to the cows. Mm-hmm. We are trying to help him find a processor because I know I can use his product, just like we are using the oranges right here in Texas in our products. That's easy for us once we process it. So that's on our radar. We are looking to find that. But then you come to people like Betty, you come to people like Marcus, you come to people, so you have manufacturers, you have the schools. We help each other. That's the great thing about schools. You know that, Marlon. You came from the schools. And, if someone called Betty from another district, anywhere in the country, Betty will share best practices. That's our community. Mm-hmm. That's our community. So really, it's up to us veterans here to pay it forward. We're not going to do this forever, right, Betty?
Right.
We're not going to do this forever.
Right.
But I know you have left it better than you found it. And, someone like Marlon and Marcus, they are the future. So I'm just proud of what you're doing as well, Marlon. But that's a different story for a different day. We may have to do a podcast on you. That would be fun. That would be fun.
To do that. So, Marcus, in closing, I know we're getting ready to go tour one of your farms. What can we expect out there?
You will expect to see 150 volunteers from CarMax, and the mission continues out there today. Mm-hmm. You'll see 4 distinct growing areas. So we have a south field that's set up to replicate what it is that a kid might see on a large commercial size farm. We have an orchard that will be cleaned out and in preparation for our naming for our former executive chef, David Husbands, who passed last year. Mm-hmm. Thanks to Cool Tropics for helping with this memorial. You'll then see an area that's dedicated more so toward regenerative agriculture practices, using hugelkultur to grow the plants. And so that'll be most of those bits will be redressed today. And then you'll see a north field where it's pretty much a field trip garden. So when kids come out there on a field trip, they drop in a seed or drop in a seedling. They go through, weed those beds, and hopefully in a couple of weeks they'll be able to taste some of that food on their next field trip out there.
That sounds like fun. I cannot wait to get out there. And I know I'm going to tease my wife for a second because as I was packing to come down here, I have a pair of cowboy boots that was actually a gift from a friend in Colorado, Katie Costa. You know Katie, right?
Of course.
And I'm like, "Hey, babe, should I take my cowboy boots with me?" And she was like, "Well, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to go on a farm." She's like, "You're not going to need those. Like, you'll be fine." And then I walk into Houston ISD and I see Marcus with his boots on. I'm like, I knew it. I should have trusted my gut. Brought my boots.
Are they fancy boots, like with a nice skin on them?
She said they're fancy, but
No,
Katie
you would
got them
not.
for me for wearing on the farm.
Oh, yeah.
And
So they're not fancy at all.
should have
Yeah.
brought 'em. Yeah.
I thought they might be exotic with like ostrich or gator or something like that.
No.
Okay,
no,
that's my other pair of boots.
That could be cool. Well, the reason why Katie got me these boots is because one of my friends, Kayla Byer, she owns a company called Deeply Rooted. And her and her husband, they have a farm, and he has cattle and she has crops, and they do the whole regenerative agriculture thing too. And my wife and I visited them once in Minneapolis, and I was walking around the farm, like walking cows and, on the tractor and stuff in sneakers. And Katie's like, "You've got to get yourself some boots."
You need to come back for the rodeo and the livestock show where you'll see kids with animals and just a lot of animals. I say they move, cluck, and oink. But you'll also kids who are growing vegetables. Yeah. So you need to come back to the livestock show, back to Houston Rodeo, where they have the livestock show, and see how well these kids are engaged. And then you can wear your work boots and your fancy boots.
Yeah, you can wear anything there.
Yes.
And to that point, I definitely want to thank, we talked about volunteerism and how it is that we're able to get these gardens done. Our work would not have been done if it wasn't for volunteers from the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo, specifically the Black Heritage Committee and the Agriculture Education Committee. These folks have given of themselves to come out on weekends and on Fridays to help us rebuild or rehab a garden. And so we're truly thankful for all of that type of support that it is that we get from the Houston community.
That's great.
And Marlon, one more thing. You motivated us now to want to visit Betty's Garden in Detroit.
Yeah, what are we going?
Right. So if you guys give me enough notice, I may be able to invite a farmer from Welch's from Western Michigan to
Let me
drive
tell you-
over to
let me tell
Detroit,
you.
and we'll visit your school.
Briefly,
Farmer
there
school.
is a farmer associated with Detroit's Garden. Her name is Barbara Norman. She is an African American woman down on the west side of the state who grew blueberries. We used to purchase her blueberries, and through our vendor, he would buy them and she would flash freeze them, process them, and put them on the shelf so that when school came, blueberries harvest in May, June, and July. No kids. But when September, October came, we had 80,000 pounds of her blueberries, frozen blueberries, that we were able to offer our children. So, and then she came down as a farmer, and she planted blueberry bushes in schools. We planted blackberry bushes. I mean, the whole relationship that you can start, and farmers they're just so willing that somebody would stop and say, what I am doing is important. Here's my time. Sure. So we could do a Visit Detroit. I love to do a Visit Detroit. Springtime is the best time. But right now, we need to go out to Makawa Farm
That's right.
and
Ready.
see what's happening out there.
Let's do
and
it.
I thank you. I really thank you for this opportunity.
I think you guys are taking the time and for the hospitality and for the tour. And Frank, thank you so much for flying over from Florida and sponsoring this episode and everything that you do for Child Nutrition, because you are an amazing partner to operators such as Houston ISD. And I just love the fact that everybody just works so well together. Like, it's a industry of caring and passion
Yes.
and feeding kids and teamwork, whether you're operators, whether you're industry, and together we'll be stronger, and we appreciate that.
Thank you for the compliment. As they say, it takes one to know one. So I appreciate you saying amazing, but you guys are amazing. And Marlon, I'm really proud of you, man. I can't wait to see you. The best is yet to come for you. And when you see a star, you just know it. So
Thank you.
thank you very much.
All right, see you guys on the farm.
All right.
All right.